Welcome to Mentoring Moments. Mentoring Moments is a sub-series of the E-commerce Edge podcast. It is composed of clips taken from Jason's one-to-one and group mentorship sessions. Hey, Simon.
Hey, Jason.
How you going, mate? What's going on in your world? How's everything going at SBA?
I wouldn't say we're bowled over by inquiry at the moment.
Yeah.
That probably doesn't surprise you.
Yes.
I think at the moment it's all about just casting a wider net, staying visible and whatnot. So we're quite active on our line, and obviously we're poking around in forums like this as well to meet and greet. But it's a little bit tough, put it that way.
Yeah, look, I think the industry's, there's a bit of paralysis by analysis in some respects. At the moment, everybody's a bit of a deer in the headlights. There's a lot of navel gazing going on. There's a lot of budgets being cut. There's a lot of unknowns still out there in the market. I think there's a few other shoes to drop, and I think we're probably going to see another 3 to 5 quarters of some pretty deep pain. The Reserve Bank in New Zealand just recently raised a half a percentage point, which was predicted to be 25 basis points. I think was the prediction. I think there's quite a few other shoes to drop, and I think there's a lot of things in the market around what the Fed's going to do over the next couple of meetings, over the next couple of months, whether they're going to keep their foot on the pedal of raising rates until they really see something significant break in the economy, because inflation is still out of control in the United States. It's still rearing its ugly head. There's some signs in some quarters that it's coming down a little bit, but still not in the core CPI. So I think across the board, and I think the RBA has paused their rate hikes. They're taking a bit of a breather, and they're taking a bit of a wait and see approach. That's going to
for a moment.
Yeah, I think obviously rises in interest rates are they have such a lagging impact on economic performance. And when you think about over the next 6 to 12 months, I can't remember what the numbers are in New Zealand anyway, but it's pretty staggering. Something like, I think 350,000 or 400,000 homeowners are going to come off of fixed to floating rates. And so in most cases, those interest rates will double. But again, even though those interest rates have risen, many households won't feel the full brunt of that pain until they come off a fixed to floating. And so I think that's what the concern is, that there's some lagging indicators here that are going to take a while to flow through the system. And then we'll see what the real impact is. But central banks are between a rock and a hard place. They made a rod for their own back, keeping interest rates far too low for far too long. And they created the inflation in the first place and gave governments a free hand to spend with debt spending at basically almost zero cost. So at the end of the day, the piper has to be paid, right? And so I think all of us globally, interest rates now are 11.25% here in Mexico. It's the highest rate in Mexico ever. And it's been the longest period of tightening in the history of modern Mexican finance. And so 11.25% makes New Zealand and Australia look pretty, and even the States makes us look pretty soft on inflation, to be honest. But the government here is very serious about inflation. Wage inflation, price inflation is out of control in Mexico. And some of the downstream effects that we're seeing of that, like, for example, for us, we're noticing it very directly because we're bringing in, say, for example, NZD. NZD's lost nearly 20% of its value versus the peso in the last 12 months. So we're paying 20% more than we would have 12 months ago in Mexico for almost everything, bringing Kiwi dollars. And there are some pretty massive downstream effects of that. What we're seeing on the flip side is nearshoring. At least here in Mexico, we're seeing nearshoring from China as an overhang of COVID. A lot of American companies are moving manufacturing to Mexico because it's lower risk in terms of proximity to the country, and logistics is easier and cheaper, with global logistics being so expensive now. We've got Tesla announcing they're going to build a massive factory here. So there's a lot of money coming into the countries in buying pesos, which is pushing up the value of the peso, plus other currencies shitting the bed. So there's a whole lot of macroeconomic factors here that I don't think anybody fully understands the interplay between those and what the fallout is ultimately going to be in 6, 9, 12, 18, 24 months. I don't think anybody can predict that with certainty, but we know certain things are going to break. That's as much as we do know.
Yeah, for sure.
And how are you guys seeing, because you guys deal almost exclusively with business clients, right? You don't deal with domestic clients doing like domestic taxes. Yeah, so it's all businesses.
Business only, yeah. There's the isolated client where we'll do the personal side of things, but only if there's a business relationship there. No high net worth individuals or any stuff like that, just straight business stuff, and predominantly in the digital ecosystem, no fish and chip shops or anything like that.
Yeah, digital and e-com, and I guess potentially a lot of D2C brands, et cetera, that you guys work with.
Yeah. So I think the last time I checked, we're about 40% digital agencies, about 40% e-com, and the remainder are SaaS and tech startups.
Yeah, that's a good split in terms of risk mitigation for you guys, having that having those buckets means that you mitigate your risk a little bit as well. Although obviously you're pretty sector specific or vertical specific, you're at least de-risking, what you do. And that's a little bit what I've tried to do with my consultancy as well. Is sure, probably 75% plus of my work is working directly with merchants. But then I've got that other 25% that's split between SaaS vendors in the e-com omnichannel space and investors wanting to invest, not so much anymore, but historically investors wanting to invest in the e-commerce and omnichannel space and wanting help with things like due diligence and market positioning and what does this company's go-to-market look like? Is it valid? What are their competitors? These types of things. So yeah, I think having that sort of three-pronged or three-bucket approach, what you guys have done, I think it's the maximum amount of de-risking you can do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We need to stay niche. We don't want to be a big four or anything like that. And last count is about 35 of us in the organisation now. We're deliberately small. We want to stay that way. We don't want to conquer the world, but we've got a very specific, let's call it, product offering. We know who our target market is, and we just need to work a little bit harder at the moment to find them. They're still out there, just battening down hatches.
But changing accountants is oftentimes like changing banks, right? There's a bit to it, and it takes a bit of time for someone to get to know your business. I know that, like, for example, my accountant, I've worked with him for years and years and years and years, and I get probably 1 or 2 cold emails a week from different accountancy firms saying, "Hey, we'd love to take over your business." And I'm just thinking, even if you could save me $500 a month or whatever it ends up being that you could save me, you'd still have to get to know my business, and you still have to get to know all these other things, and it would be a mission. Is it worth my time to make that change? Maybe, but probably not. I'm still pretty boutique what I do, and I'm still, if I was a $10 million a year business, then maybe that would move the needle significantly by changing a service provider. But yeah, to your point, it's difficult when the cost of switching, or at the very least the complexity of switching, is pretty high.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I certainly don't focus on cost. It's more about the value proposition that we put forward. But often it's quite difficult to articulate that until you get a better understanding of the business. So it's not just a case of firing a cold email out there and say, "Hey, we're gonna charge you a higher fee than what you're probably paying at the moment, but it's still worth it." Like, who's going to read that? Where's the delete button?
Yeah, it's difficult, but I think you guys have got an advantage in that, and this is probably going to be useful for Ashley and Christine as well. Is that you've got a CEO and a founder who's very publicly visible. He's written a book that's pretty well known, at least in the ANZ region. He's not shy about getting in front of the camera. Definitely have that founder's authority in the business, which is really good. He understands the value and importance of educational and entertaining content. He's able to create it and produce it at relative scale. So I think you come out of the gate with someone who at least gets modern media and the fact that doesn't matter what business we're in, doesn't matter what industry, and we're first and foremost a media company. That's what we have to be in order to remain, unless you just want to just pay for performance marketing through the nose forever. The reality is, unless you can become your own best brand ambassador, you're going to pay someone else to be that for you. And so you're in the enviable position of at least working with an organization that fucking gets it.
Yeah. An interesting point, which I only learned a couple of weeks ago. Up until fairly recently, it was actually illegal for professional services firms to advertise in Australia. So law firms, accounting firms, I think, illegal.
Wow.
Yeah, which Jason mentioned it. Sorry, Jason Andrew, our founder, not Jason Greenwood, obviously. I mentioned it in passing a couple of weeks ago. So I think everyone's still trying to figure out how to market a law firm and how to market an accounting firm, because it's only fairly recently that it became a thing.
Yeah. And Jace was really good about tiptoeing across that line of saying, "Hey, this is educational content. I'm not marketing. I'm not selling.
Exactly.
I'm not pitching. Here's what you need to know if you're in business, if you're in D2C, if you're a SaaS platform vendor, if you're this, you're that. Here's some different scenarios." And I think where he found some success was in the financial teardowns of some very famous public companies who had gone public, particularly some of the larger D2C brands, where he could get access to public information on their quarterly reports, et cetera. And then he could tear those down publicly and break them down in kind of layman's terms. And hey, that's not marketing. I'm not trying to sell you my accountancy services, but I'm going to show you my expertise by creating content around a space that I know heaps about. That's like my bread and butter. So I think he's been pretty clever about finding ways around that without breaching the law, but entertaining, educating, and obviously his branding. If you follow his profile, then obviously you're going to see that he runs SBA. So he's been pretty smart about how he's tiptoed across that line.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, we didn't get a chance, unfortunately, because I had to move our meeting last week. I didn't get a chance to do our one-on-one last week. So I apologize for that. How's your tennis lessons going?
They're good.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. I played tennis in high school. I lettered in tennis in high school.
I just picked it up about 6 months ago as a hobby, and I love it. It's so much fun.
And the cool thing about Oaxaca is it's tennis weather every day.
All year.
Yep. Pretty awesome. Pretty cool. Yeah, looking at extending actually our stay on the Playa Verde there, the Oaxaca coast, because they've got like 3 major sets of beaches on the Oaxacan coast there. So we're looking at actually extending our stay there, because I was just doing some research on the local beaches there last night, and wow, there's some pretty spectacular looking coastline where basically the jungle comes right down to the beach, which looks pretty cool to me.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. You could definitely spend a few weeks there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've got one of our other Kiwi friends that just moved to Oaxaca. She actually moved to Mexico a week or two before we did. And she went straight to Oaxaca because she'd already traveled around Mexico a bit and loved Oaxaca. So she knew that's where I want to live. And she got a long-term rental straight away there. I think she's got a year and a half rental or something like that there. And she's loving it. She's absolutely, she's so far, I'm not even going to get a car for now because I just want to walk around Oaxaca and just immerse myself in the culture. So yeah, Oaxaca looks like a pretty cool place.
Yeah, it's surprising she found a year-long lease right away. It was fine.
It was hard. She was in a lot of Facebook groups looking for one. But what's going on with the business and everything on your side with new product development and everything else?
So much, Jason. So much.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. So, guys, I literally started or founded a business I guess we started working on it about 6 months ago, but it became official literally a month ago. We got our LC and EIN and stuff like that. But it's an eco-friendly cat litter. It's an eco-friendly pet company, but we're starting with an eco-friendly cat litter that's manufactured in the States. And we entered a contest on a whim back in December. And we are now one of the 4 finalists for this contest. It's backed by a VC. It's an ag tech incubator and VC put together contest, and we're one of the 4 finalists. And we're leaving next, I think in a week from Sunday, to go to St. Louis. We'll be there for a week, and it's St. Louis Startup Week. I don't know, but I guess it's St. Louis Startup Week, but we'll be doing the pitches all that week and networking with investors and suppliers. And oh my goodness, it's been a whirlwind, and we've met 3 potential really good contract manufacturers and formulation, R&D specialists to work with. We met with 2 potential partners for our raw ingredient, and a possibility to co-locate a manufacturing facility in 2025 with one of these companies. It's insane the amount of stuff that has happened literally in 3 weeks, because it's been about 3 weeks since we got back from that conference. So a whirlwind. So now I'm just working on my pitch presentation and then the actual pitch presentation deck. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind. All good things.
And it's sped up quite significantly, because I think because I think it was nearly 6 months ago that we first started chatting, and everything was a little bit slow. You were a little bit frustrated. It was like, oh my God, do we want to go to academia to help with formulations? Should we do this? Should we do that? There was a lot of, I guess, angst in terms of, man, what is the most efficient pathway for us to get this business up and running off the ground without giving away our IP? What happens if we use a contract manufacturer overseas? Are they going to steal our recipe and then use it for other customers or sell themselves? There was a whole raft of scenarios that we talked about for the early days, all the way up to, okay, we want to do a bit of DC. We want to have a Shopify store. What does that look like? What kind of specialists do we need in the business? Do we need another co-founder that's technical? We covered a lot of ground over the last few months, but I can feel that the momentum, at least from your side, I can feel the momentum change. And as opposed to, I can detect a much greater sense of clarity from your side of the direction you want to take the business, as opposed to just having kind of nothing but a vision board of question marks. Now there's a vision board of, okay, here's a bit of an action plan. Here's the steps. Here's the next thing we're going to be doing in 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 weeks. And it's pretty awesome to watch you go through this evolution of, you started out with I think maybe humility, certainly. And I think that's a great quality. But I think there was maybe a lack of confidence.
Insecurity?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a lack of confidence. But I've felt for the last couple of weeks that we've been speaking that there's definitely been a creeping growth of your confidence level and of the clarity and the vision and the direction that you want to go and how you want to get there. It feels, and I also got the sense that when you started having the more difficult financial discussions with your co-founder and you started really digging into the nitty gritty of, okay, what is this going to take financially to get us to the next step? It feels like those kind of hard conversations that maybe because you didn't have a massive interest in finance, for example, you were like, okay, I'm just going to let him deal with that. And I don't need to think about that because I've got someone that handles finance. But once you started understanding the financial and commercial drivers of the business, that actually helped you bring focus to the operational and marketing side of the business at the same time. So it feels like you went on a journey of discovery of yourself whilst you were going on a journey of discovery about the business.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely been a journey. It's been completely uncomfortable, which means there's been a lot of growth. I don't remember a day where I haven't felt uncomfortable at some portion of the day because I'm learning new things, I'm trying new things, I'm networking. Like, it's been probably one of the best times of my life. And I've just, like, the growth that I've felt both personally and professionally is something I've never felt before. And I'm really proud of it and I'm really excited about it. But I have so much more work to do. And that's not daunting anymore. I know it's a certainty and I'm excited about it because right now it feels like the sky's the limit. That's a really cool feeling.
Damn exciting. I'll tell you the other, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I think that once the safety net of your previous role went away, it feels like that was actually a catalyst for you to double down on your own business and for everything that you were doing. Whereas before, maybe there wasn't the level of urgency or the sense of urgency because your time was split between this full-time thing and the startup thing. And it was like, shit, there's no massive rush because I'm still doing this full-time thing over here. And the startup thing I can just kind of play with a little bit as it comes along. Whereas once the full-time thing was done, then it was like, okay, now not only do I really need to make sure this works, but I've also got the time to dedicate to focusing on this new startup business.
Yeah, for sure. I was definitely using the full-time job as a crutch. And it wasn't until I got booted out, I had options, but I knew that was my moment. And so it was like, okay, it's my time to give it everything and give this thing a shot. I've been talking about it for so long and wanting it for so long. So it's the perfect time. So it's worked out so far. We've come so far, just even in the last 3 months. It literally went from an idea that we were tinkering with to now a real thing. And people are on board. Like, people are excited about it. And that gets us even more excited about it. We've had investors come to us, we're not looking for funding right now, but to know that people are excited and believe in it and see the value and the growth potential, it makes it that much easier to sell the story or to sell the business opportunity. So
sell the dream.
Yeah.
Got to sell the dream, right?
Exactly. And I have an amazing business partner. Like, if you could dream up the best business partner, it would be him. And he just so happens to be one of my best friends. It's just, I got so lucky. But yeah.
I can tell you the power of business partners. When I first started my very first business years and years ago, selling memory cards online, I felt the same as you. Through a friend, I met my business partner and he became a dear friend of mine. We started my first company together as 50-50 business partners. And I handled all the digital e-com stuff. He handled all the contracts, the sourcing, the business modeling, basically everything to do with the financial side of the business. That was his job, similar to how your business partner is. And man, it was such a relief to find someone that was as passionate about that side of the business as I was about my side of the business. Like, it was actually a relief because there was no chance, there was not a single chance in hell that I would have started that business without him as a business partner. It just would never have happened. he also helped give us a tremendous amount of funding up front. He had the money to do it, and he believed in the business so much. We basically were able to self-fund. We didn't have to go out and fundraise or anything. We're able to focus on growing the business because he basically funded us in the first year of operations. And man, I can tell you, a lot of people, they shy away from taking on a business partner or two because they think, I want to own the whole thing. I kind of want to be the master of my own destiny. I don't want to ruin friendships by going to business with a friend. I don't want to, or a family member for that matter. I kind of want to own this whole thing myself. And that's all fine and good. I think there's upsides to that too. But I think that the potential risks of not covering bases appropriately enough by not having people in the business that you don't have to pay, so to speak, just for most businesses that I've seen, having a co-founder or two is a much smarter, much less risky way to go. Sure, there's some power sharing that has to go on. But what I found in my business is that because we had totally different skill sets, like there was no advice. He couldn't poke his nose into the digital and e-com side because he knew nothing about that. I could not poke myself into the sourcing and logistics and contract negotiation side because I knew nothing about that at the time. Like we couldn't in each other. We couldn't really poke our nose in because we had such different skill sets. Now, of course, we would be a sounding board and give our feedback if it was asked for or whatever. But I think that as long as you don't play in the exact same sandpit, you're probably going to be okay. You won't necessarily step on each other's toes.
Yeah, I agree. We have that same kind of relationship. He can give feedback on, I always ask for his feedback with creating the brand and stuff like that, but he can give feedback, but it's not his wheelhouse. It's not his expertise. And I'm starting to learn more about operations and financial modeling and, oh my God, so many like slang and whatever acronyms but that won't be my expertise. I'm going to learn it. I have to learn it. I want to learn it, but maybe I'll be someone that he can brainstorm with and more of an analytical thinker and start questioning things, but it'll always be his wheelhouse. Just like the marketing and branding side and the e-commerce side will always be mine. So it's a beautiful little symbiotic relationship.
That's so good. That's really exciting. And Simon, maybe you can, I'll bring Christine in a second as well. Simon, of the companies that you tend to work with and types of clients you tend to work with, are most of those, do most of those businesses, they are multiple founder led businesses? Or are they mostly sole trader operations? Or do you find the same thing that when you've got 3 or 4 smart heads around a table as part of the leadership team of a business, that tends to be better than an all-powerful dictator sitting at the top?
Yeah, generally speaking, there's co-founders 2 to 3. And as you said, very rarely do they have crossover in their skill set. So the most common one is a numbers person and a marketing person. So you nailed it, Ashley, basically.
Yes.
We typically, and then I guess if you're looking at SaaS, for example, there'll be a tech head, the tech lead and whatnot. So there'll typically be a third co-founder / director in the SaaS space. But yeah, vast majority have got at least 2 heads at the end of the table.
Yeah, and oftentimes finance, the third piece of the puzzle or fourth piece in the case of a SaaS company would be an ops specialist, I would say, is a very important piece of the puzzle, having finance, marketing, and then ops. Ops becomes, especially as you scale, like when you're still small and you've got 2, 3, 4, 5 people in the business, it's pretty easy to manage yourself. But when you've got 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 people in the business, ops starts to suddenly become all consuming for somebody in the business if you don't have an ops specialist in the business. And so oftentimes that can, usually in the beginning from day one, it'll be the finance person who owns ops as well, at least initially, because they usually have the head for it, because you have to oftentimes take quite an analytical approach to ops. But pretty soon thereafter, as you get to 10 million, 20, $30 million scale, that's when you start needing somebody that's pretty laser focused on ops. That's the other piece of the puzzle that I've often seen be missing in some of these businesses, and it prevents them from scaling efficiently. You seeing with SaaS companies, are you seeing, Simon, that you seeing an increasing number of SaaS players? Are you seeing consolidation like I am in the industry, where we seemed to go through a period of 2018 to 2021, early 2021, we saw fragmentation in the SaaS space where every single function in a business was split out as its own SaaS platform that you paid $20 a month for, or $50 a month, or $100 a month for. Whereas now, I think what we're seeing is a reconsolidation of the weakest players in SaaS just not having enough runway, not being able to get continued funding. A lot of them were never profitable. They never made any money. And so investors pulled the pin, and they're putting money into the bigger players that are either suites of services within the one platform, or platforms that can become a suite-based platform that maybe they gobble up a competitor and they bundle in some functionality, and boom, all of a sudden now we have some adjacencies happening here where we can get some efficiency. We can basically bring across their existing customer base and upsell them into the entire suite. Seeing a lot of consolidation in the SaaS space, and I think that consolidation is going to accelerate pretty rapidly over the next 18 months as funding continues to dry up, and as you have to continue to prove profitability, or at least a very clear pathway to profitability.
Absolutely. And we're loving every moment about that. Jason's been a pretty vocal about these cash eating monsters. And the question's got to be asked, okay, at what point is this thing actually going to go profit positive? We can't just keep feeding money into these things forever. And I think the contraction in the VC market, Australia is following the same trend as the States. There's still money out there, but they're certainly not as flippant with it as they have been. So I think it's probably a combination between consolidation and attrition. The weaker players are just disappearing, as you said, because the funding is drying up.
Yeah, a lot of those we don't hear. I'm probably a little bit closer to the industry than most, and so I watch all the tech press, and so I have personal connections in the industry. So I do hear about a lot of these smaller players just not necessarily liquidating in a bankruptcy kind of way. They just wind down operations because they go, I got 2 months of runway left. I've got
the money to pay everyone out.
Yeah, yep, I'll pay everyone out. Yep, let's just wind back operations and let's call it a day. We saw in Australia yesterday, I think it was announced that Milk Run is just going to close their doors. They're not going to shut with debt. They're going to pay all their staff. They're going to pay all their suppliers off, but they just decided to wind back operations because they don't see any path to profitability. They ran out of VC money and they just can't go on. And they're effectively a SaaS tech play on top of fast food delivery, rapid delivery. And we're seeing that across rapid delivery in almost every market around the world. We've seen massive consolidation there. And it's looking just like with the Ubers and the Lyfts of the world, we're going to end up with a duopoly in most markets on the fast delivery space as well, both in terms of grocery and in restaurant delivery. And so we're seeing just massive attrition in this space, full stop. But I think that points to what you were saying, which is a lot of these companies, they wind down. We don't even know how many have wound down because they're not big enough. They're not a Salesforce, right? They're not a NetSuite.
To make a headline.
And so we don't even hear about them unless we're following the market really closely. So I think we're going to see some pretty radical attrition and consolidation, and I think that's going to accelerate over the next 6 to 18 months.
I guess a portion, and Milk Run's probably a really good example. There were 3 competitors in that space. The other ones, their names escaped me, but 2 of them dropped off mid last year. Milk Run was the last one. Their only 2 competitors disappeared and they've died a slow death anyway. Yeah. So it comes back to the question of, okay, what problem did they actually fix? Was it ever going to work, regardless of competitor activity or how much available funding there was out in the market? Was it ever going to work? There's still a big question mark over that.
And I think it's also telling that they vaporized $75 million worth of investor funds since late 2021.
Yeah,
so
we're at 80 mil. So it's 70 or 80 mil, something like that.
I think it speaks to the easy money policy of VCs, even as late as mid 2021, that the easy money policies, and it was like a light switch. It happened in the span of 2 or 3 months that the entire market, basically when that first level of interest rate hikes hit, both with the RBNZ and RBA, once those first round of hits followed the Fed, pretty much brakes came on the VC market in literally a matter of 60 to 90 days. It was one of the fastest, and I've unfortunately been able to witness several recessions in my lifetime. I'm old enough to remember the dot-com boom and bust. I'm old enough to remember obviously 2008 and several other smaller recessions in between. So yeah, but this one felt like a bit of a whiplash in how fast the taps got turned off and how fast people got a dose of reality. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next year or so.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, what else are you guys seeing in the market? Ashley, you're focused on your business and head down, bum up, and all that sort of stuff. So you're really not probably paying too much attention to anything outside of your sphere of influence. But what else are we seeing out in the market happening right now that we think is maybe some of the macro impacts that are going to impact your business?
Sure. I can just talk based on the few conversations that I've had. Like I said, we've had a few conversations with some of the largest. They will be our suppliers or could be our suppliers of raw ingredients, but they're tofu and soy milk manufacturers. And so we're talking about a possible collaboration or a partnership. And one thing that I've seen is there's a big push towards sustainability and reduce or zero waste, right? We've seen that just based on those conversations, which is great because our product is eco-friendly, renewable, sustainable. But to hear other bigger brands talking about the same thing in a completely different industry, and even talking with a smaller startup like us about potentially working together to create a better brand story or brand image to showcase or communicate their sustainability and their zero waste efforts, that's reassuring. We knew sustainability and hopefully eco-friendly or conservation would be something that's important and businesses start thinking about. But I think people are actually starting to make headway and not just talk and greenwash people, but are actually starting to act, which is fantastic. And I hope it continues because we got to stop destroying this planet. It's the only one we have.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that specifically because I think it was 2 days ago, I read an article, I think it was from Forbes or Business Insider or something like that, about a company. I'm pretty sure they're in Europe, but I think they're in the Netherlands. And they have pioneered a way to create a leather replacement from mango fruit waste. And they basically get their raw materials for free because what they do is they take all of the rotten mangoes in ports, so both inbound and outbound. So there's a lot of fruit waste in ports while fruit is waiting to be cleared for importation, et cetera, and fruit rots very fast, especially in tropical climates, et cetera. And apparently the Netherlands, where we're based, I'm pretty sure it was the Netherlands, they're one of the biggest importers and exporters in their ports of mangoes in Europe. And so basically they get their raw material that would normally be thrown away and literally disposed of or buried. They get the raw material directly off the port. It gets sent to their factories. They have this special slurry process where they convert it into basically almost like a puree. And then they have a special curing and tanning process that makes this and turns it into extremely durable leather-like substance that the way in which they produce it for a start off is not as toxic as traditional tannery, has all sorts of toxins and formaldehydes and all sorts of outputs that can get into waterways and things like that. They've pioneered a way to make an almost zero waste tanning process. They also do the colorings at the factory. They also do the stamping at the factory so that if you want a leather that looks like snake skin or looks like crocodile or looks like whatever, they can do that all under the one roof. And yet they've developed novel technology around using, I think it's food enzymes and certain bacteria to do certain transformations to the raw material to make it durable, et cetera, et cetera. But it's also is totally, it poses no danger. Like when a piece of clothing is finally disposed of, it like biodegrades in a matter of months, basically in an anaerobic environment. So when it goes to landfill, it breaks down into nothing in a matter of months. So there's definitely, I think that the radically rising cost of the source material for a lot of manufactured goods is forcing creativity in the manufacturing space and in the biotech space to basically take what would be a free waste product that would normally just get thrown away and use that as the raw material, almost like a free input to making something that is commercially usable and commercially valuable. And I think we're going to continue to see food tech, ag tech. I think we're going to continue to see these types of technologies fundamentally change how we view the sourcing of raw materials and what we think of as waste versus a super valuable input.
Yeah, the amount of highly intelligent people, just the scientists and the R&D guys, the researchers that are like in the ag tech space in particular, because that's what I'm working in, it's astounding.
Yeah.
And just the way they think about the process, manipulating like the constituents of something, it's amazing. And that's what you talk about, taking a waste product and finding an innovative use. It's exactly what we're doing. Soybeans starts as soybeans, they get broken down into soy milk, then they get broken down further into tofu. And then we're taking that waste and creating a cat litter, which then gets used, go to the landfill or completely biodegrades or compost. It's amazing. Like no single part of that soybean really is going to waste. It's mind-boggling.
It's pretty incredible, all right? Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I think you need to talk to Simon and Co about how they can see if they can help you guys understand your business model better. Not that your finance guy is not amazing, he probably is, but I guess when it comes to international business development, those guys over at SPA are a little bit funky time zones there because they're in Aussie and obviously you're in Oaxaca, but it's not too bad. Where I think you're about 7 hours behind us at the moment, aren't you, Simon? Because we're at 5:55 p.m. here.
10 a.m. here, so
yeah. But there's overlap in the evenings or in the afternoons. There's overlap. So yeah, maybe there's an opportunity. Maybe not now, but at some point in the future when you guys are looking to expand internationally and looking to take on the world and maybe set up subsidiaries in different countries and all the things you want to do. Talk to the guys over at SBA because Jace and Co, obviously Simon and team, they're really good at what they do. Jace is go and check out Jace on, you can just look at SBA, I guess is probably the easiest small business accounting in LinkedIn, and you'll find Jason Andrews LinkedIn. But yeah, just look at some of his content. I think that I've learned a lot. I thought I already knew quite a bit, but when it comes to financial teardowns, some of Jason's financial teardowns, especially of some of these public companies, you will learn quite a lot about that. You can pull snippets out of it and say, I can apply that learning to my business. Maybe they're in a totally different vertical. Maybe they operate in a totally different way. And obviously being a public company, they're huge, but there'll always be that little nugget based on his financial teardowns that you go, I'm going to file that away because that is a learning that I can apply right now in my own business. So definitely from an educational financial literacy perspective, I think that book sitting behind Simon there on the virtual shelf, Stark Naked Numbers, that book is, there we go. That book has been very well received, particularly in the ANZ market. And that helps businesses understand how to operate their business financially. So yeah, I think in your quest to learn more about the financial operations of a business, check out Jace's content and highly recommend it. Super high character individual that wants to see businesses succeed. Can strongly recommend that for sure.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I'm not here for a sales pitch, Ashley. I'm here to meet people and learn about what's happening in the broader industry. We've actually had a couple of potential clients ping us in the last week that are at the exact stage of the journey as you are. Like, we're prepping one for a pitch at the moment. They're jumping on TV in Australia on the 14th. It's not Shark Tank, Jason. It's a different one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you've got 1,000 things running through your mind. Okay, I got to know this. I got to know this. I got to know that. How much am I pitching for? Oh my God, I'm nervous. There's just 1,000 different things that are running through your mind. But I really commend you for what you're doing. I'm quite passionate about the zero waste space as well. I'd love to learn more about that at some point. But it sounds like you're onto a winner there.
Seems like it. We're going to keep pushing.
Very exciting times.
Don't forget the little people. When you become famous, I knew you back when, before you were on the world stage. It was cool. It's been great to actually be part of your journey and to just witness all that confidence that's been built over time in you, and being able to turn some of those things that you have learned in your day job and turn that inward and turn those skills inward on your own startup. That's a very cool thing to witness. And it's clearly driven a passion in you that has just slowly grown into this thing where it's become all consuming. And it's awesome to see something that lights your fire in that way.
Yeah. And it just so happens that it has to do with the animal industry, which obviously I'm obsessed with my crazy cats. And it has to do with protecting the environment. Like, how can you not love it? Like, it's a win-win on both sides. So it's something that not only I hope to make a living off of, but I actually care about it. It's things that I'm excited about. And I want to make products for my cats too. So it's real. It's fun. So it doesn't even really feel like work. The stress is there, but it's so worth it. I never thought I'd say that about work or professional work, but it's true.
It's like what they say when you meet the perfect person. I think it's the same thing about business. And I knew that when I quit working agency side and I wanted to do my own thing, and it was all very intentional. Some situations had happened that maybe accelerated things a little bit, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be able to work from anywhere in the world. I knew I wanted to go back to owning my own business again and not having a boss again, and being able to do all the things that I love and not do the things mostly not do the things that I absolutely hate about our industry, right? Letting people focus on the stuff that they love. I focused on the stuff that I love. I never wanted to start an agency. Again, I never wanted to basically own my own agency and have 50 staff. I wanted to stay boutique and small and working with a small selection of really great fit clients that saw massive value in working with me. And I got great experience and knowledge and learning out of working with them and being exposed to their businesses. And man, it feels good when you finally get there and you had this vision for a few years and you're like, man, this is where I'd like to get to because this is the lifestyle I want to build. And I know that in order to build that lifestyle, this is the pathway I need to take to get there. And to finally, it felt like forever for us to talk about getting to Mexico and finally making that lifestyle change happen and moving halfway around the world. And yeah, look, it sometimes feels overwhelming. I agree with you, Ashley. I think that's a perfect description. It can feel overwhelming, but I think if you try to eat the elephant one bite at a time, it feels a lot less daunting.
For sure. And I think I'm still working on this, and I think I always will be working on this, but it's more so about enjoying the journey, right? Like there is no end point. Like I don't want to sell a business. Like I want to create something that I love and I'm passionate about and that, yeah, I can earn a living from. So I'm not working towards something, right? Like an end thing. I'm trying to enjoy the process of learning new things and seeing something that was at one point just an idea grow into this. My baby goes into a toddler, to a teenager, to an adult, right? Like, so I'm trying to enjoy like the process and the journey. And sometimes I catch myself, right, getting stressed out over something or overly anxious. And I'm like, wait, no, there's no stress. It's okay. One step at a time. That's all I can do.
That's it. One step day by day, right? Just progress over perfection. I think that's the universal thing, right? I'm a pretty serious perfectionist and it's an affliction, I think, that afflicts a lot of people. But at one point in my life, I just had to realize, look, there's no such thing as perfection anyway. Sure, do your best. And sure, you want a great outcome. And sure, you have standards and you want to have credibility. And I think that you want to be trustworthy and all those things. But I think the perfection is impossible. So I think that, as you say, as long as you're making progress and as long as you've got, I think intent is the most important thing. The intent really matters. And as you've got good intent and you've got a good mindset and you want to see good things happen in the world and you want to put good things out into the world, I think intent is much more important than specific results. I really do.
For sure. And the other thing that I've found is perfection causes you to freeze, right? If you're always looking for perfection, you can't move, right? So if you can I think I would prefer action over perfection. That's my motto these days. What are you doing? Are you causing action? Are you moving forward? That's my success metric.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much again for spending the time with me today. It was a fantastic conversation. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks. If you'd like to get mentored by Jason for free, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll to the bottom of the page and click Get Mentored by Jason.